Hey guys, so just waiting for a few more people to log in, or some people to log in. We always start with 0. Start with 0. Just going to post it to my Facebook page. Hey guys, so let's have a look who's here. Hey Dionel, hey Lady Laser, hey Monica C. So I thought I'd talk a bit about the I am state to start with. So if you watch my live streams a lot, or my YouTube videos, or follow me on Facebook or whatever, I tend to talk about like following our excitement, finding our calling and life purpose. This is generally my excitement, my calling, to assist other people to find their calling, to, as we call it, empowerment, following your excitement, your joy, expressing in the world, like what we came here to do, like playing in the world. But we could say there's another side of spirituality, the awakening side. And the idea is that following our excitement moment to moment is moving us towards the awakened state, the I am state, the state of pure awareness, pure consciousness, pure presence, our true nature, beyond our mind, beyond our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs. What some people would call enlightenment or self-realization, or at least the initial stages of enlightenment and self-realization. So I guess the idea is that as we grow up, we become so identified with our beliefs and our thoughts and our minds that we actually sort of believe that we are our minds, or we become so identified with our thought patterns that we think our thoughts are real, and we think everything we think is true. We're like that, actually identified with our beliefs, that we think our beliefs are true and we think our thoughts are true. And somehow, and we can sort of see the ridiculousness of this if we look at how everyone on the planet has different beliefs. Like literally everyone on the planet has different beliefs. I mean, if you ask people about their perceptions on certain things, everyone will give different answers. We might agree on some things, but generally everyone has their own belief set. There are always things that people disagree on. So everyone has different beliefs. So from there, we can see how sort of ridiculous it is to believe that our beliefs are true, and how arrogant it is and how egotistical it is to believe that our perspective of creation is true. Our thought streams are all true, because this is just the modality of egoic consciousness, the modality of third density, the mind-based reality. It's how the physical mind works. It can't really operate in any other way. It learns through cause and effect, through reaction and to external circumstances, to what it's taught as a growing up. And basically it learns from sensory input from the five senses, the five normal senses, not including like extrasensory perception and that. And so as it grows up, it takes in all this information from the outside world, and it builds up what we could call a paradigm, a belief on what is true. And it's sort of like the software in a computer. The computer is just blank, like a hard drive, and all the hardware is blank until it has the software, and the software is the beliefs. And the mind just operates linearly. It just goes along with, like, the beliefs come up. It's it believes the earth is round, it believes gravity is finite, it believes in cause and effect, it believes, if it's taught like biology at school, it believes in like Darwinism and the idea of natural selection and evolution and random mutation, and it believes that there is nothing after death. But if it's brought up in like perhaps a Catholic convent, it believes in the Christian teachings. It believes there is life of death after death, and you've got to be a good person, otherwise you go to heaven. A bad person, you go to hell. And it just learns linearly, and it's like this is how the brain works. And when you're identified with your brain and the thought patterns, you're actually believing them to be true. You have all these thoughts going on through the day, and you actually think they're all true. And you think that is like reality, like whatever they're saying, you actually believe that is reality, and you believe it has some truth to it. But the idea is that is only one layer of consciousness, one perspective of creation. And within us all, we have access to the higher levels of consciousness, like deeper levels of self-realization of our true nature and who we are. And this is what the I am is pointing to. It's pointing us back to that pure awareness, pure consciousness, that if you listen to like non-duality teachings, or like Buddhism or Hinduism, or originally I think all the religions are pointing to this, but specifically like Eastern teachings and non-duality and meditative praxis, the idea is you hear these, and like Eckhart Tolle's sort of teachings where he says, stop thinking, you are not your mind, and these sort of things. It's all trying to point us back into a higher level of consciousness. Although it's in a sense not higher at all, because it's our natural state of consciousness, and we all have this all the time. It's just so overlaid with our thoughts and our beliefs and our mind patterns that we can't hear it anymore, because society's become so crazy, and like human civilization is like so dynamic and crazy and accelerating at the minute that our minds are just going, just from the minute we wake up, our minds kick into gear and they start thinking, and we don't get any space. We rarely get a glimpse of that I am state, that state of pure awareness, that state of pure consciousness. And often the first glimpses people do get of this are in moments of like extreme beauty, like you're maybe out in nature and you see like a spectacular sunset and it just blows your mind, and there's all your thoughts just drop away, and you're just looking at the sunset and purely absorbed in the moment. Or sometimes in highly difficult situations like a car crash. A lot of people experience having awakening experiences in like car crashes or stuff, because it's like the mind doesn't know what to do. The mind can't process it. It's just too intense for the mind, and the mind just clicks out. It goes into shock or something. But the idea is that there is a state, and other people attain it through like things like rock climbing, you know, like rock climbing, like sheer faces without ropes, because obviously if you're like 200 meters off a sheer cliff and you've got no ropes and you're just hanging on with your hands and your feet, you ain't going to start worrying about your bills or all the normal stuff that the mind likes to worry about. You're just going to be 100% focused on holding onto the cliff and where you're going to put your next foot and looking for your next grip. And this is why so many people are into extreme sports, because it takes them out of the mind. It forces them into a pure state of consciousness where they have to focus, become very grounded and focus on their external reality. And this is why so many people are drawn to like extreme sports, because it unlocks you from your physical mind and unlocks you from suffering, because the vast majority of suffering comes from identification with the physical mind. When we rest into pure awareness, into the I am state, the vast majority of human suffering drops away, if not all of it eventually, perhaps. Because when you're not thinking, where are your problems? Or if you're not identified with your thinkings, if you can see they're not your ultimate nature, even if they're moving through your consciousness, they're not a problem. So I will have a drink. And one reason I think it's relevant and powerful for everyone to come to at least awaken to the I am state and be able to enter that more and more in their lives, even if you're not particularly interested in self-realization and enlightenment, you're more interested in empowerment and going out into the world and finding your calling and serving humanity. Even if that's your thing, to be able to begin to access and understand the I am state, the pure awareness, the awakened state, it is very beneficial, because when you're following your highest excitement and your calling, it's very demanding on the physical mind. It's very intense and it can easily lead to burnout. But if you're able to just rest into emptiness and pure awareness and stillness and serenity and peace at will, or almost at will, because it can be difficult at first, it can be very difficult at first. It can act as, you know, it can help you recharge your batteries and regenerate and raise your frequency. And ultimately, it creates intense joy in yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but generally, intense joy is like the sense, the essence of being in this pure awareness state. So it enables us to, you know, help humanity and align with our calling on purpose to a much greater degree. So rather than just talking about it, I thought I'd perhaps guide us into, take us a quick meditation to literally, so we can all experience it and all rest into the I am state as we begin this call. So yeah, I'll see some cool questions. I'll get to the questions in a bit. I'm just going to sort of see if I can take us all into a glimpse of this I am state. Yeah, I am state equals third person perspective. Also cool. Yeah, I guess that's correct. If you've ever played computer games, I used to play like shoot 'em up games a lot, and you can either go in first person perspective where you're looking at your eyes, you just see everything in front of you, or you can go into third person perspective where you can like see the character in the game walking around. And that's sort of what it's like. You see that you go into the pure awareness state, and the more it deepens, the more you see that you're not your physical body, you're not your physical mind, and you come to see that your mind and your body are just projections of your own consciousness, and they're just really no more than you than any other being is. They're just sort of like focal points for your consciousness in this reality. But as you go into the I am state, we shift into like third person perspective, and sometimes it can literally feel like our consciousness is up here and we're like observing ourselves. So yeah, I think as it said, someone said in the comments, third person perspective is a great example of sort of what the I am state is. It's realizing like the third person. I guess the first person would be us, and the third person, as in this example, and as in like computer games, third person perspective, is popping out into your I am pure awareness consciousness and seeing that you're not your body. So so if for a few minutes, what we could try is, I'll try, and rather than doing this eyes closed, we could try something a bit different. I'm going to look into the webcam, and if all you guys focus on my eyes while we're doing the meditation, so it's going to be an open eyes meditation, and you guys are going to be focusing on my eyes. Okay, so perhaps I should stop saying so a lot. Better than going It's my secret way of not saying So if we all put aside all our stuff for just the duration of this meditation, just 10-15 minutes. If we drop all our stuff, all our mind noise, like whatever's going on in our heads, in our minds today, whether it be worrying about money or our partner or making the tea or checking if the stove's turned off or worrying about your health, or all these things that we have going on in our mind, if we can just put them aside for a few minutes, just drop everything. And begin to notice when we've let go of everything, all of our thoughts, our chatter in our mind from the day, whatever our mind wants to latch onto in the moment, when we put it all aside just for a few minutes, there's something that remains. There's kind of an alert presence. An awareness, a cognizance, a stillness, a silence. The words can't really describe this, but we know what they're pointing to because we can feel it when we let go of all our chit chats and we just drop everything for a few minutes. something remains. We're still here. We're still conscious. There's a presence. There's a simple knowing that I am. And when we begin to focus our attention upon this pure awareness, we can ask ourselves, what is it? Where is it? Do we need to do something to get to it? Does it have dimensions? Does it have form? Does it have a beginning, an end? Or is it simply that it just is? Just is, here and now as us. Can we see it? Does it have a name? Can it die? Do we need to do anything to get to it? Or is it simply just here? Has it been here all along? And we see that it has. It's been here all along. It's just our mind was making so much noise. We completely forgot about it. We completely forgot that our nature, our true nature, was this, beyond everything. And if it's been here all along, do we need to do anything to get to it? Do we need to do anything to keep it? If it is us. And the mind will come back and it will try and trick us and tell us that we need to do something to achieve this. But it's not true. Because this is you. It's always been you. It's always been here. And the more we focus upon this pure consciousness, pure aware state, the more we remember this is our destiny, this is our birthright, this realization of our true nature is part of the very reason we are alive on the planet at this time. This is the awakening, this is the remembrance, this is the realization that we are pure consciousness, we are pure awareness, infinite and unbound. Okay, so if you have any questions, guys, I'd also be interested to hear your feedback on that quick meditation. If you are able to sort of rest into the silence and experience the I am state for yourself, especially if you've not really sensed it before, that'd be awesome to hear that you got a glimpse of it before, or if you're more familiar with it and you felt the meditation worked, be interested to hear your feedback. It's all a bit one-sided from here. Okay. So we'll look at the questions. Question for the Yael. What does Shivai mean? Shivai means, I remember as Bashar, I first heard Bashar describe it because it comes from Bashar originally. I was a big Bashar follower. And the Yahyel teachings are, in a sense, an evolution of the Bashar teachings, or a slightly different perspective. And as Bashar described it, Shivai means, and I guess I've never heard Bashar or the Yahyel clarify this, but I'm presuming it comes from the idea of Shiva, because Shiva is the warrior, in a sense, the destroyer of darkness, I think, in Hindu traditions. And Shiva is like a very powerful force, that the warrior of the light that cuts through all darkness, that stands in his way. Nothing will stand in the way of Shiva to bring enlightenment and service to humanity and the light and the love of creation to earth. No darkness will stand in the way of Shiva. That's why he's the destroyer of darkness. And I guess it comes from here, because the Sasani language, where it originally comes from, is an evolution of human language and Zeta language. I believe it's a mixture of human languages, because obviously we are their forefathers. So they take a lot of stuff from human language, or they used to, because they don't use physical language anymore. They're telepathic now. In their ancient language, Shivai means, get out the way, I'm coming through, I'm following my highest excitement, nothing will stop me. It's like when you're fully aligned with your highest excitement and you're in the flow state and you're totally alive and fired up and aligned with your higher self. It's like Shivai. And it's like sort of nothing's going to stop me, like the Shiva essence, the warrior, the destroyer of darkness. No darkness will get in my way. I'm following my excitement, I'm coming through. You know, sort of like what I'm doing, I guess, with channeling aliens. Like the darkness wants to stop me through all its controlling of society and manipulation of the collective mind patterns to believe that extraterrestrials don't exist and telepathic expression doesn't exist and all this stuff. So, Shivai. I hope that answers your question. If we give the aliens permission for full worldwide disclosure, how will they go about it? Channeling? Good question. I mean, I guess this is the process of moving towards full worldwide disclosure. This is how it begins, through the channeling state. And if we give the aliens permission for full worldwide disclosure, so I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, but sort of my interpretation would be what you mean by that is how we give the aliens, the extraterrestrials, permission for full worldwide disclosure is, I guess, like you mentioned a bit further down, not quite sure what you meant, but like we have to reach like a sort of 100th monkey place. We have to reach a place where there's enough population on the planet that want first contact for them to be able to go ahead. Because one of the reasons it hasn't occurred yet is because not everyone on the planet wants it. You know, I'd say perhaps, I know, maybe half the planet still believe that aliens don't exist, or they still believe we haven't contacted extraterrestrials. They still believe the official story that our governments and our media are handing out, that we haven't made contact yet. And so they have to sort of honor those beliefs. You know, those are the beliefs of our civilization, and they can't force themselves over an evolving civilization. They have to first of all wait for people like to believe in their existence, to come to see that they really exist, and then they want to sense into whether everyone wants them to make contact with us. And perhaps it doesn't need everyone, but perhaps it needs a majority vote. Perhaps more than 50% of the planet wants extraterrestrial interaction with benevolent extraterrestrials. So I would say that is when we give them permission for full worldwide disclosure. How will they go about it? Well, I guess they'll take it really steady, really slowly. Like channeling is the beginning. They're interacting with people in the dream state a lot. I know a lot of people that have a lot of interactions. People say they go on the ships at night. This isn't something I particularly experience or remember, but I know a lot of people that do. They talk about going on the ships at night in their dream state, in the astral state. And it's a case of like acclimatizing us to first contact, because extraterrestrial contact is completely mind-blowing. It's like not what you thought it is at all. It's like they exist on such a high level of consciousness that when you even come into sort of the auric field of an extraterrestrial spacecraft, your entire reality shifts. The experiences I've had is like, I call it moving into fourth density. I'm not sure if that's an accurate description, but I'm sure it's somewhat like what fourth density is going to be. It's like, it becomes sort of quite clear that reality isn't physical. It's like life like turns into a dream. It's like, because we still believe generally as humans that we live in a physical reality of cause and effect, and like we live in an external world. But as our consciousness grows and expands, our reality becomes more dreamlike. It becomes more clear that this is just a projection of our consciousness, really no different to a dream at night. And when we have like encounters with extraterrestrials or UFOs come into our reality, we often feel our reality shift dramatically. Like our perception of creation, our perception of our reality drastically shifts very rapidly. And it becomes very clear that we live in a dream consciousness, like this is a non-physical reality. It becomes very clear because it's like literally becomes our direct experience. It's like reality just shifts, and we just like know that we're not living in a physical reality. Like our consciousness rises, we can experience intense joy and intense bliss. But often what also happens with this is that all of our out of alignment beliefs and like emotional imbalances come to the surface really rapidly. The raising in consciousness pulls all our stuff to the surface. Of course, this is what's happening in the spiritual process, the spiritual path. As we raise in consciousness, all our stuff comes to the surface. I'm sure most of you are aware of this, that as you've been on the spiritual path for so long, we think it's all going to be love and light, but we suddenly find all this crazy stuff going on in our minds. Like, when we go through these phases, like we wake up in the morning, our mind just starts like screaming at us almost. And it's like, just all this crazy stuff goes on. And it's because it's all our negative programming, our negative conditioning is coming to the surface for redefining and realigning and bringing back into center. And because we've got so much stuff that's out of alignment in ourselves, like emotional needs, egoic imbalances, like selfishness, greed, you know, all these things, they still exist in us as humans. Like all these negative, like we still have negative stuff in us. I think virtually everyone on the planet has some negative imbalance. You know, we all have greed, selfishness, jealousy, fear, lust. Is lust bad? Probably. And I don't know. It's a very human thing, lust, of course, and it's biological. I guess identification with lust and letting it drive your life is the imbalance, as opposed to the natural biological reaction to a beautiful person that we are attracted to. So, going off track. So, yeah, so we go, so all our stuff gets brought to the surface through the, and this happens at an accelerated rate, because when we have extraterrestrial contact, when a UFO comes close into our reality, we experience the consciousness of the UFO as well as the extraterrestrials on it, because the UFOs, the flying saucers, the ships are actually conscious. They are aware, they are living organisms. Like the UFOs we see in our skies, I don't know about all of them, but certainly the ones involved in the races I interact with, they are conscious. The crafts are conscious. They are a manifestation of the entities flying the craft's higher self, and they are literally conscious beings. And you can sense this when one of these crafts comes into your reality, whether you see it in the sky, or very often they come into my reality and I don't even see them, but I know they're there because I recognize their consciousness, and my consciousness shifts dramatically. And when they come in, our consciousness goes, it's like I had this experience a bit ago and I was like, oh my God, I'm enlightened. I think I finally made it. And then I was like, no, I recognize this, and realized it was another contact experience. And like I say, what happens, it brings all our stuff to the surface. It shatters our reality, because of course this awakening process is so brutal, because it is the destruction, the entire shattering of all our dreams, all our hopes, all our ideas about reality, it all gets shattered when we awaken, because we see that it's not true. All our dreams, all our hopes, were just projections of the mind, and we come to see that all there is this present moment, this present consciousness. And it's like kind of the collapsing of our entire reality. And it can be very turbulent, very uncomfortable, very disturbing for the physical mind, for the perception of ourselves we thought we used to be. And when we have these extraterrestrial interactions, it shatters all this at an accelerated rate. It begins to just break up your entire reality. You realize you're just pure infinite consciousness, just having experiences, that all experiences are moving, like the idea of impermanence in Buddhist teachings, because like the idea of impermanence is the shattering of all realities. Like everything we thought we would ever attain, we come to see that it's just an experience moving through our consciousness. So like everything we've ever grasped onto, the sort of happily ever after story in a relationship, that I'll be rich, I'll have a nice house, we come to see that it's all just a movement in our consciousness and nothing lasts forever. And like it shatters our entire reality. And this happens very rapidly in extraterrestrial contact, because we merge consciousness with them and we shift to their perspective of creation. And from here, it's so clear that our reality is a complete illusion. And this is very disturbing for the physical mind. It's very unnerving. People can go into psychotic shock. A lot of people that have spiritual awakenings end up in mental institutes, in psychiatric rehabilitation centers, because all their stuff gets, all their emotional imbalances just get forced straight to the surface, and they're unable to deal with them. And so this is the risk of extraterrestrial contact happening too fast. It's an evolution of consciousness. It is a shift to the self-realized state. And as many of you perhaps know that have been on this spiritual path, it is difficult going through a spiritual awakening, and it happens at an accelerated rate during extraterrestrial contact. So this is why they're taking it one step at a time. This is one reason they approach through channels, because the good thing about channeling is people can choose whether to believe it or not. If it was forced upon an individual, if suddenly an ET came into a room and said, hello, I'm an extraterrestrial from Zeta Reticuli, and they're very clearly extraterrestrial with big black eyes and they're conscious, it's, you know, the minds wouldn't be able to deal with it. It would just completely shatter the mind's paradigm, the mind's view of reality, and it would have a lot of trouble processing it, and it wouldn't be able to process it at a fast enough rate. But when they interact with humanity through channels, anyone can write off a channeling, you know, as of course most people do. They look at a channel, they see me going, hello, 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 I'm the yo-yo, and they just laugh it off. They say, that's ridiculous. Aliens don't even exist. What is this guy? Is he on drugs? Is he gone insane? So it's very easy for the physical mind to write it off, and therefore the mind doesn't go into any sort of psychotic shock or deep processing situation. It's enabled to put it to a side to process at another time when it's ready to cope with it. And so this is why they're taking it steady, and this is why they will continue to take it steady, even when we've got to a point where the whole civilization wants first contact and it's known about. It won't be fully integrated in the collective consciousness. Even if people think they want first contacts, they want a better life, and they want the extraterrestrials to assist us to get out of this mess we're in on Earth, no one really understands what this extraterrestrial experience is, because it's, like I say, it does shatter your entire reality. So this is why they take it a step at a time. And so I guess the next stages are individual contact. They will begin to interact with individuals here and there that are more awake, that have processed a lot of their stuff, that are less liable to freak out, go into psychotic shock, and begin to interact with people on an individual basis, so they can gauge the so they can gauge the reactions that they're having. I feel this is what they're constantly doing. They're like constantly monitoring us like an evolving organism, and they're having the odd UFO sighting here, and then they're stepping back and they're monitoring very acutely our reaction to the situation, how mentally disturbed we become, how it causes chaos and disagreement in our reality, how our consciousness is evolving, whether it's bringing us into more of a blissful state or just bringing up too much stuff for us to process, which is what tends to happen. And so they're just doing a little bit at a time, and they're going to keep probing with like increased channeling contact, increase contact in the astral realm with people that astral travel in the dream time, increased sightings, like individual sightings, little balls in the sky. Now and again, mass sightings, mass events that are going to make the media and people go, whoa, something's going on here. And then they're going to step back and watch how we react to it, watch how we process it, watch how we evolve. And they're going to keep doing this. They're going to keep probing and monitoring and seeing and sensing when they think they can come to a point when they can present themselves collectively more physically, and at a point where our civilization will be able to handle it, where we won't all go into psychotic shock or have an emotional breakdown or go into fight or flight mode and all start panicking because we think they're going to invade us and take us over. Because this is subconsciously programmed into the collective through the media, through the Hollywood film industry. Whether it's been done intentionally or not is another debate. But it is subconsciously programmed into our collective mindset that the aliens are here to take us over, Independence Day, etc. And this stuff is all in our subconscious and we don't realize it. But when we have an extraterrestrial interaction or a big spiritual awakening, this stuff comes out of our subconscious. We think, haha, it's funny, the aliens taking us over. And then when we like see a UFO hovering over our house, we're like, oh my God, are they going to abduct me? Are they going to shoot me? Are they going to brainwash me? Are they going to take me away from my planet? Like all this subconscious fears and programming and our natural fight or flight instincts come to the surface. So when it comes to a point when they feel we're ready and we're not going to go into too much crazy reaction to this announcement, perhaps where the president, if we still have a president then, who knows, perhaps unlikely in its current format because everything's going crazy in the US. And but no, we will have leaders in some form, I guess. I hope. We need some structure in this planet still, I think. When it gets announced, as an example, White House lawn, probably won't happen like this, but President here, Trump here, Hillary Clinton here, all finally made friends. Welcoming us in, introducing us to like a Yael or a Pleiadian. And are we ready for it? What's going to be the reaction? Are we going to go into chaos? Are we just going to start warring and panicking, or is it going to have a positive effect? So they've got to make sure it has a positive effect. And if it just happened now, it would just be too chaotic because our reality is so chaotic at the minute that if we had first contact now, it would probably just increase the chaos. Like I'm sure it would. Everyone would be like, hey, fuck this. I'm not paying my taxes. The aliens are coming. Yay. Which, while I don't particularly agree with the current taxation system to all stop paying our taxes and just descend into chaos, perhaps isn't the way forward. So, I hope that answered your question, The Shift. Would you tell me where I went into the sky as a child each night for years? I'm afraid I'm not like some all-seeing person who can answer every question, and neither are the Yael or the Sasani. They only have a perspective. They're not like some all-seeing entity that can see everything. But would you tell me where I went into the sky as a child each night for years? I don't know. Perhaps this is a sign that you've had extraterrestrial experiences. You probably know more than your... there's probably more stuff in your mind. Often we block a lot of this out. Sometimes it's completely blocked out, but sometimes it's still sort of there. But these experiences are so bizarre that we sometimes sort of just put them away till we can process it. It's like when I had this massive spiritual awakening, like in 2009, it completely blew my reality with like this is when the extraterrestrial contact was involved. And for like months and months afterwards, I would forget about it. It was crazy because it was the most mind-blowing thing that had ever happened to me. I like expanded into this super intense bliss state when I was I felt like connected to everything and like I was part of creation. And I felt like I was my soul come to earth, and I was in this intense state of bliss. And it was the most mind-blowing thing I'd ever experienced by 100,000 times. And yet a week later, I'd forgotten it had happened, or months later, and I was like, it was like it hadn't happened. And then one day I'd just be pulling along at work and I'd be like, oh yeah, shit, that crazy shit happened to me a few weeks ago. I forgot about that. How could I forget about it? And I guess it's because it's too much for the physical mind to deal with. So the physical mind just puts it to the side. So with your question, would you tell me why I went into the sky as a child each night for years? It's possible that as you start investigating this, you'll find you actually remember more about this than you realize you do. And so, yeah, so just look into it, meditate on it, see what comes up. Cool. Very good meditation. Thank you. Thank you, Darnell. It's something new I've been playing with, so glad to see it's working. The Arcturians in my head are too noisy. Interesting. I'm sure they would back off if you ask them to, if you want them to. Essassani, Dark Night of the Soul. I'm not sure if you want me to talk about the Dark Night of the Soul, but it does seem to be coming up a lot. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube about the Dark Night of the Soul. I guess it's just representative of, yeah, this processing we go through when all our negative stuff comes up. We have like these awakening experiences, and we think, yes, I'm enlightened, I made it. We're like in bliss for a day or weeks or months, and we're just blissed out, and we just don't need to do anything. We just like sat in the sun in this state of pure euphoria and bliss and oneness and serenity, and it's just so mind-blowingly beautiful. And you're like, I made it. All I had to do was a little bit of meditation, a little bit of spiritual practice. And then all of a sudden, all our shit starts coming up. It's because we've still got stuff suppressed in the subconscious. We've still got out of alignment beliefs hardwired into our brains. And I guess the Dark Night of the Soul, in a sense, is when everything we go from that euphoric state, and all of a sudden we're in this deep darkness. It's because all of our beliefs, our need for a relationship, our need for financial security, our fears of death, our fears of being ridiculed by humanity, our beliefs that we're not good enough our beliefs there's something wrong with us, all these programmings we take on as a human being. Suddenly that we think we're enlightened, but secretly we've got all this stuff suppressed deep in our subconscious. But at some point it has to come to the surface to be integrated, so we can become a fully integrated, balanced, realized conscious being. And this is the Dark Night of the Soul, I guess. As all that stuff comes to the surface, it has to come to the surface. We have to experience it because we have to remember it's still there. We have to come to see that we still have all these fear-based beliefs in our consciousness. And so we can redefine them, reprogram them, look at them and see if they're true or not from the perspective of creation, from the perspective of our higher selves, and rebalance and integrate our new perspectives, our new realizations that we are infinite consciousness and all is well. So I guess that's the Dark Night of a Soul, in essence. Good vibes. Presume you're referring to the meditation. That's good. Why do we have to suffer and humanity can be in their safe mind zone and chill and have a fun life? Because we are transcending the illusion that we can be in a safe mind zone and chill and have a fun life. I guess it's because we're evolving to the next level of consciousness, which involves, it's just a natural evolution of creation. Our civilization is evolving. It's necessary at this time because we're destroying our planet. Our civilization won't continue to go on if we chill in our safe mind zone, because this safe mind zone is slowly destroying the planet, in case you haven't noticed. And humanity and plant life and animals with it. So, but also we're just going through this natural evolution of consciousness. And so we have to evolve. It's just like clockwork. Like our planet is literally moving into an area of the galaxy. We're just, I guess it's like clockwork. It's like a great cosmic clock. And we're just moving into the next level of evolution, the next level of consciousness. And the safe mind zone just doesn't exist. It's an illusion. It's like an illusion of the mind. There is no safe zone. We're living in constant free fall. There is no guarantee that we're going to be alive in 1 second. There is no guarantee of anything. And the mind doesn't like this, because the mind sees death as its own dissolution. And there's great subconscious fear. Like a lot of people say they're not afraid of death, but I don't believe them, because when you come to face your own death, it's pretty scary. And so, yeah, so that part of the evolution of consciousness is coming to see that we are infinite creation. And this is like the acceptance that we will die at some point, because most people are in denial about their own death. So, yeah, it's just part of the evolution of consciousness. We are evolving. It's what's happening now. It's amazing. It brings more bliss. And ultimately, we are evolving into like a higher state of consciousness. And would you really want to go back to that safe mind zone? It's not pleasant, I tell you. You think you might like to just go back to that place where you can just go to work, come home, drink beer, smoke some weed, watch telly, watch the football, go to sleep, wake up, repeat. You think, sometimes we think, well, wasn't it easier? And it was easier in a sense, because it's so intense, this spiritual transformation. But once you've had glimpses of the higher states of consciousness and begin to rest into that bliss state more and more, and that state of oneness and serenity, you don't want to go back. We don't want to go back. And yeah, and we just have to suffer. And we don't have to suffer, perhaps, but it seems we do suffer a lot, because all those old beliefs are just so incongruent to our new consciousness. So, and we're doing this for all of humanity. It's going to get easier. I believe most humans, because I believe the first ones to awaken go through the greatest suffering, because they are battling the collective mindset so hard. But it's going to be easier. We're making this easier. We're showing the way. If it's any consolation, or to know that it will be easier. Every person that wakes up makes it easier for the rest of humanity to wake up, because the collective consciousness comes to understand it's just natural and it's just the way it is, and it's nothing to fear. So by going through this intense processing, intense suffering, as we transcend our old beliefs, we are paving the way for it to be so much easier for the rest of humanity. So when you see your parents like get stuck in their mind stuff, or your family or your friends, your old friends, and you think, you feel sorry for them, know that it's going to be easier. It's getting easier for everyone to wake up. People are going to have to suffer less and less. So we're not just doing this for us. Know when you're suffering something, and notice when your darkest stuff is coming off, your hardest stuff, whether it's fears around money, or fears around losing your partner, or being rejected, whatever your darkest stuff is. Know that you're processing it, not just for yourself, but for the collective, for the entire of humanity. And every person who processes this stuff unlocks something within the collective consciousness, which makes it easier for everyone else to wake up, and less painful for everyone else to let go of these distorted beliefs about the need for relationships, safety, money, a nice house, etc., etc. Things get better. First, you must get over your fear. That's what it's all about, getting over all the fears. And it's a natural process. It happens. But we've also got to do the work. Souls choose suffering for growth. Yeah, I mean, that's why we came here. From a higher perspective, we came to Earth to catalyze our spiritual ascension, our spiritual growth. I know Bashar sometimes refers to Earth as a master class, because the idea is that we sometimes perceive ourselves as like a spiritually unevolved civilization, like way down on the spiritual ladder. But that couldn't be further from the truth, because the idea is that because there's so much darkness on Earth and there's so much separation, and we're going into such an intense process of believing we're separate individuals, it's like a master class. It's like we can come in here, and if we can go into such darkness and such illusion of separation and such disconnection and discord and negativity, and find the light and find our true nature from there, that's something special. And that's an extremely powerful lesson and learning for our souls. We've basically come here, we've forgotten completely who we are. We've disconnected from our soul, from everything we know. Most of us, we've completely let go of everything. We've agreed to believe into all these negative beliefs that life is just how it is and there's nothing, and then we die and it's all over, and blah, 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 blah. We've agreed to forget everything. Yet from in this complete darkness where like everything is against us, or where we're like, we've stacked all the odds against us, we've jumped into a reality where like our entire sociological system is structured and designed to keep in these beliefs, small useless individuals, like disconnected from everything, just random mutations just floating through space. We're like come into this reality where like everything is against us. Everything is against us. And from here, we've managed to find the light. We're finding our way out. We've discovered that it's not true. So that is special. And as a soul, that's an extremely powerful experience, to be able to forget everything and still find the light from there. That is a powerful thing to do. And that's why Earth is a masterclass. And that's why everyone is here. That's why there's so many extraterrestrial civilizations observing our Earth at the minute. We often see, like, you see people talking about extraterrestrial contact on the media, like the general people who don't know that much about it. And they're like, why are they here? Why would they have interest in us? We're just like some random animal. Surely they could just come and like analyze us in one day and then piss up, go why they're here. But what they don't understand is like, this is where it's happening in the universe. To come to like such a devolved civilization, such darkness and such illusion of separation, and find the light from there. We're like literally at like this crossing points from the darkness into the light. Like literally, like this planet contains like ultimate darkness and ultimate light. There's both sides of the spectrum in this planet, and there's very few places in the universe where this is occurring, this shift of consciousness. We're literally shifting through now the shifts from like total domination of darkness for thousands of years, and we're rapidly accelerating into an evolution into pure love light awareness, a very high consciousness love light vibration. And that is something special. That is very rare in the universe, very rare in this universe, very rare in consciousness in general. So that's why there are so many extraterrestrial civilizations here to observe, to interact, to help with us. So many angels and all consciousnesses. It's like we're where it's happening in this universe, and certainly in this galaxy. It's like everyone is looking at us, and like something really special is happening here. So yeah, and that's why we came here. That's why we chose to come here, and why we chose to suffer. And we knew we would suffer, and we knew we would go through an extremely intense process of taking on all these negative, distorted beliefs of the darkness and transform them and redefine them at such an accelerated rate, like we are doing at the moment. We're like all in this. I tend to see it like we're all in like this furnace, and we're like all like carbon being forged. We're like a lump of coal, but we're going through this like coal and diamonds are both carbon, and like, so technically, I'm not sure if this is exactly right, but basically if you get a lump of coal and you were to put it under huge pressure, it would turn into a diamond. Perhaps that's physically correct or not, but it's something like that. And anyway, it's a good analogy, because that's what's happening at the minute. I feel we're being so compressed, and we're so acceleratively moving into this new consciousness, that this is like literally passing through the eye of the needle, and we're like passing through like Like we're going from all these negative dark, and we're just being completely destroyed, and everything is being like passed through its eye of the needle, and we're coming out the other side, and we're passing from like ultimate darkness into ultimate light. And there are very few places in civilization where this occurs. So this is why we choose to came here as souls. It's like Bashar sometimes uses the analogy of the roller coaster. It's like when you get on a roller coaster, you're like on the roller coaster and you're going up and down. It's like, well, it's terrifying and it's exhilarating. And you're like going down this huge roller and you're absolutely terrified. You're like, I'm never going on this again. I'm never going on this again. I'm terrified. It's awful. Why did I get on this? This is awful. I'm terrified. I'm hating this. Get me off. Get me off. And then the ride stops and you pull up. And you're like, wow, that was amazing. I'm getting back on. And it's sort of like that with the soul's journey. You come into this planet and it's like so tumultuous and so much pain and so much suffering and so much difficulty, transcending all these old beliefs. But when you die and you go up in spirit, you're like, wow, that was amazing. We learned so much in that reality. I'm going back in. Let me back in. That was the best ride ever. So from the soul's perspective, all this suffering and all this acceleration and growth is extremely exciting. So that's why we chose suffering. And that's why we are enjoying it. And the more you can come to perceive it from that reality, perceive it from that perspective, the more we can define it positively, the more it can appear positively in our reality. Because if we define suffering positively, it puts a positive spin on it. And so is suffering if we're seeing it as exciting and positive. So, where are we? Full disclosure is the agenda by the humans in the political world due to the advancement of ascension and the consciousness. Yeah, I think that's probably true. We have there's probably both sides of the coin in there still, but certainly the consciousness is evolving. We're shifting to a new parallel reality. We're very, very firmly shifted into a positive oriented reality. So I'm sure there are a lot of people in the political arena who want full disclosure and probably some who don't. I'm sure it's very complicated. Yeah, I don't know for sure. Interesting thing to ponder. But we are seeing more disclosure all the time. It's coming, towards the end of last year, we saw a lot of stuff on some of the main US media channels talking about the reality of secret governments, UFO research programs, which only a year ago or 6 months ago they denied even existed, and now they're admitting the research programs actually exist, and they've got all this footage of UFOs, and they basically did disclosure already at the end of last year. If you watch some of these news interviews, like there was one guy from I believe it was from the Department of Defense in the USA. He was from their UFO research program, and he went on like Fox or CNN or one of these major news channels and like started talking about what he did. And like only 6 months prior, it didn't even exist. They were like the US has denied for many years that there was any research into the UFO phenomenon, I believe. And now they're admitting that there's a Department of Defense program, and this is the guy that used to work on it, and they've got some very interesting footage, and they're saying, well, we don't know where it comes from. It appears to be coming from a source outside of this planet. I mean, how much closer are we getting to disclosure than that? I mean, that is disclosure, isn't it? I mean, but people seem to have missed it. I don't know if people's minds aren't ready for it, or I don't know what. It seemed to me like disclosure had happened. And like no one seems to have noticed. I don't know what. I guess it's the momentum of the collective mind. It's had this momentum of this didn't exist for so long. It's like people are like, wait, what's going on? Back to the football. It's quite bizarre. I guess yeah, it's very bizarre. But like it is, our minds have been programmed for so long to believe that extraterrestrials are not visiting us and they're not here. And even prior to that they don't even exist. That's how our minds are work, and this is how our minds are still going in that programming. And it comes on the media and say, well, here's the Department of Defense program that says it seems they probably do, and our minds are saying no, they don't. And our mind just can't unplug from that belief system. So I guess it's going to take a while for the collective to rewire its mind, even though disclosure appears to be happening. It is the process of being an empath in all things required to fully realize your position in the universe. Yeah, I guess so, because it's all about integration. For it's about realizing that we are one with all of creation. So we can't experience oneness if we're still blocking out parts of our reality, refusing to integrate and accept all parts of our reality, darkness and light. So I guess that's what you're pointing to. Yeah, we have to integrate it all. We have to see it all as us, because we are moving to a state of oneness, unity consciousness. Exactly. Subconsciously programmed. They programmed us to fear the unknown. Maybe. They programmed us to fear everything, I think. Fear is the way the darkness works. The darkness controls through fear. The light works through love. That is the light and the darkness. Fear is the darkness. Love is the light. The two main modalities in creation, love and fear. Saw 7 Yahyel ships in my backyard over a year ago. They told me they were coming and they showed up. Wow. What did they look like? The shift? Be interested to hear what they look like. You have already full contact in the soul without realization. Yeah, we're all always connected on a soul level to these extraterrestrials, because these extraterrestrials are aspects of our soul. So yeah, we're already fully connected on many levels of our consciousness. And also Yahyel was presented this week in Davenport, Florida, where their ship sighted. They gauged our vibration and measured it. Oh yeah, I didn't hear about that. Is there a video of it? Did it make the media? I don't watch the media much. In fact, I haven't been out for days. I've been just at home. I haven't even really seen anyone. I went to the supermarket today. It's quite bizarre. I've just been at home working. Living off grid is the way forward. Yeah, very difficult though. I'm not sure it's the way forward, to be honest. because that's separation. I don't know. So yeah, debatable. It has its pros and its. I think ultimately we will go to a. Yeah, I don't know about that, but living off grid is it's a good exploration. It would be nice. I have to admit, it would be nice to live off grid now and not have to rely on the power companies. But it'd be good to have off grid potential, So if there is an issue with like the main power grids, to still be okay. So Yahyel are coming soon too. As I understand it, the Pleiadians are going to be first. This is the communication I've been getting. A lot of people, when I say this, they say, but Bashar has said for years that Yahyel would be first. And I don't think this is the case. I'm not sure. I used to follow Bashar loads years ago, but I don't really follow him anymore so much occasionally. But I think Bashar said the Yahyel would be the first hybrid race, not the first race. I've heard people confirm this to me, but I've not heard it firsthand from Bashar. But I think this is the case. And of course, there's many different parallel realities. We're creating our own reality. This is our own version of creation. Everyone has their own parallel reality. So this goes very deep. But as I understand it, the Pleiadians are going to be first, probably Sirius second, Yahyel third. This is how, or somehow Yahyel after that. Pleiadian, Sirius, Yahyel. This is the general movement I understand that I've received. And it makes sense because the Pleiadians are a lot more human looking and a lot less scary and very beautiful. I think a lot more people had been more comfortable like meeting a very beautiful female extraterrestrial than they would like some Yahyel looking really bizarre with great big eyes and going, "Hello." So it makes sense that the Pleiadians would be first. It'd be a bit intense. Some of the Yahyel are quite bizarre looking from what I've seen in my third eye. So it would make sense the Pleiadians are coming first. They're above us now, all around our planets. They sure are. They're all here. So we will meet them when we are ready for, right? Yes. Yeah, sometime between 2030 and 2040. I'm always pointing to 2033. Stay positive, but yeah, around 2030, 2040, 2030. I don't know exactly. But yeah, they will come when we are ready. It's when we're ready. When we're ready. And we have to go through a huge evolution of consciousness collectively before we're ready. From what I've seen from my own experience. When I look at the sky, I see thousands of tiny light particles swimming. What could this be? I don't know. It could be you're tuning into. You're seeing more of the nature of consciousness. Perhaps is a representation of the pure consciousness that pervades all things. I don't know for sure. I've never really heard your spiritual awakening. Can you share the specific? Yeah, I guess so. Let me have a drink. Yeah, my own spiritual awakening, I won't spend too much time on it, but I basically I went through a rough time in my life. I like sort of lost a lot of my old friends. I was drinking and doing drugs heavily, and I quit everything for a period. And like my entire life sort of fell apart, as it generally does for most people around the time they go through a spiritual process. And I was suffering from depression, anxiety, all sorts of crazy stuff. And I started, I got into conspiracies, then got interested in UFOs, got into Stephen Greer's work, started meditating on trying to attract UFOs into my reality, had 3 UFO experiences over my parents' house within the space of about 4 or 5 weeks. A few months after that, discovered Bashar, started listening to Bashar's teachings for about a year, spent a year listening to Bashar almost every day. And then on my 33rd birthday, it actually occurred 3 days after my 33rd birthday, which was exactly 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days before December the 21st, 2012. And like 3 is Bashar's number, so it's very interesting. And a lot of synchronicity there. And I ended up following my highest excitement, like literally for a whole weekend. I got on a ferry and went to Amsterdam out the blue, like just following my excitement, was wandering around Amsterdam. Came back to the UK, and I was like literally following my highest excitement moment to moment for about 3 to 4 days without hesitation, in the trust that I would be supported. And I didn't have much money, but I was just trusting. Somehow I managed to unlock all my beliefs and just go for it. And when I got back to the UK, I ended up going to the forest and having this huge spiritual awakening where I felt like initially it was really negative. Initially it was awful. I felt like I was awakening to infinite consciousness, but I was trapped in a physical body, and it became really uncomfortable being trapped in a physical body. And I started like freaking out about this physical reality. I guess it's like all my subconscious fears about death and life and what life was all came to the surface very rapidly as I began to go through this spiritual expansion. And initially I started freaking out because I was infinite consciousness trapped in a physical body on Earth. And I was like, oh my gosh, this planet is crazy. I can't get out of my body. What am I going to do? And something inside me, this knowing inside me, came up that I had to accept that I was infinite consciousness. And because I was suffering so much, feeling like trapped inside this body, and my entire reality was collapsing, and I was just going to deep fear and deep pain, extremely deep fear, I knew that the only way out of it was to accept that I was infinite consciousness. So I somehow managed to do it. I did. I just accepted. I was like, okay, I admit it. I accept it. I'm infinite consciousness. I accept it. And in that moment of accepting that I was infinite consciousness, the deep fear and the deep pain, the deep fear and the deep negative experience suddenly switched in an instant. As soon as I accepted I was infinite consciousness, it switched to bliss. And every step I took, I started walking in the woods, and every step I took, the bliss got higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And my consciousness was just getting more and more blissful, more and more blissful. And I remember actually having the thought at one point, wow, my consciousness is so high. And because of the teachings I've been studying about Bashar, about synchronicity and how you attract things into your reality when your frequency is high, I was like right in the middle of the forest, and I had a lot of clarity about how nature worked. It's like from this higher perspective, you know instinctively how the law of attraction works, how you create your own reality, because you're directly tapped into source consciousness that understands how creation works. And so from this perspective, I had this thought, wow, I'm in this super high state of consciousness. I wonder what I will attract into my reality. And the thought I had was, maybe I will attract my soulmate into my reality. And I actually thought that, like, deep in this forest on a Monday morning with no one about, I was going to manifest my soulmate. And then I had this thought, no, wait there. That's not why I'm here. And all of a sudden this knowing came into my reality. That wasn't why I was here. I knew that I was here to meet the extraterrestrials. And at that point, I begin to follow my instincts. I begin to follow my guidance, whether to move left or right into the forest. And it guided me deeper and deeper into the forest. And I became more and more blissful, more and more ecstatic. And knowing that I was walking towards extraterrestrial contact. And whether or not I actually had physical extraterrestrial contact in the forest that day, I don't remember. I do not remember having physical contact with extraterrestrials ever. I've had UFO sightings. I've had many multidimensional experiences. I've never had a physical contact experience I physically remember. But I think I may have had one that day that I'm yet to remember and process, but I don't know. All I remember is that at some point, that bliss, I freaked out and started having lots of paranoid thoughts. What I was talking about subconscious programming from the movies came to the surface, and I had these thoughts. I'd recently read, I think it was a Diana Cooper book, and she talks about how when your light is shining really bright in this book, how the darkness, like the dark side, like the Illuminati or the shadow government, like are drawn to you because they like the darkness can sense you. And I suddenly had, because my consciousness was through the roof, I literally felt like I was lighting up the forest around me as I walked. And I had this fear-based thought that somehow, because there was all these like helicopters and like military vehicles over the forest. And I don't know if it was a coincidence or if I was literally manifesting it. I sometimes think that because I was on such an extremely high frequency, it was like 100 times higher frequency than my highest frequency I experience now. And it was crazy. It was like off the scale. It was like, and I sometimes think that I was, perhaps because I was resonating on such a high frequency, I literally manifested my fears. So perhaps there really was some military aircraft coming, searching for me, searching for this high frequency energy. And who knows what I know now about how the shadow government and the black helicopters work. And there's a lot of military bases around the area, like high ranking military bases. Perhaps they did pick up something on their perhaps these black helicopters did pick up something on their high-tech equipment, because we all know that people that get abducted, there's always black helicopters involved, because they can somehow sense the I think they have technology in these black helicopters that can sense into the interdimensional penetration, because they're always there. Mostly when there's a lot of abductees and UFO experiences, they report black helicopters appearing in their reality after the abduction. And because somehow, apparently, these black helicopters can sense the interdimensional bleed through from other dimensions, and they're very interested in exploring this. So perhaps somehow who knows, perhaps the reason all these helicopters were there is because I did have an extraterrestrial contact experience that I don't remember, and they like sensed it and they picked it up on their radars or their interdimensional sensors and came in to check it out. So I heard all these military vehicles above the forest, and I like freaked out. I was like, holy shit, all my subconscious programming came up, about being like captured and taken to some like secret research facility, because this is what I was talking about, all these subconscious fears that are in our subconscious. And I freaked out and I ended up running out the forest. And when I got out the forest, I sort of calmed down. I was like, wait, this is crazy, calm down, chill out. And I just got back in my car and decided I was going to scrap work for the day, and just went in and slept in my car and chilled for a few hours. And so that was it. And during this experience, I remember right at the peak of it, I was having like telepathic downloads from Bashar. I was communicating with Bashar. I remembered him saying that Bashar talks about how like we only experience like 5% of his frequency through Daryl. I remember thinking that I had actually reached 60% of Bashar's frequency. And it was crazy. It was really crazy. Like it was like I say, 100 times more higher frequency than anything I experience it now. So maybe I did. And that's what I remember. And it was the days after that, I started going back to the forest, because I wanted to be in nature. I wanted to get back to that bliss state, obviously. So I was going back to the forest every day, trying to reattain that high frequency bliss state. And Yeah, I went back about 3 days later, and as soon as I was driving up to the forest, I was still on the roads. I could sense their consciousness. So I didn't see anything, but I could sense the extraterrestrial consciousness over the trees, and I could hear them saying, "I believe now it's the Sasani." And I actually heard them say very clearly, telepathically in my head, a lot more vividly than my usual channeling. That I heard them say, "Good morning," and it brought me to tears because what it was, when you experience these very vivid telepathic communications, like literally when they're in your reality and you're having a direct telepathic communication, it's different to channeling. It's on another level. And when you have these telepathic communications, a direct telepathic communication with an extraterrestrial, you experience their bliss, you experience their joy. And it brought me to tears instantly just to know that it was possible to experience that much bliss and that much joy in a human reality. Because up until then, I didn't believe it was possible, because I hadn't integrated my awakening experience, and perhaps I still haven't, because like I say, this was like 100 times higher vibration than anything I normally experience. Even in like today, I've been quite blissed out, but this was like 100 times more powerful. So I've never really been able to integrate that. But this, a few days later, it was more down to earth. It was like only like 10 times more blissful. So I was able to integrate it and process it in real time. And so what I heard them say, they said, as I drove up to the forest, like 3 days after the awakening, I literally heard them say, "Good morning." And when they said that, the level of joy that I experienced was so mind-blowing. And up until that point, I didn't even understand to experience so much joy as a physical human. And I just broke down in tears just to know that it was actually possible to experience that level of joy as a human experience. And I went into the forest and had a little bit of a more communication with them. Some very private stuff that perhaps I'm not quite ready to talk about on a live stream now. And yeah, I was crying a lot, just in, tears of relief, pure relief to know that it's possible to exist on such a level of bliss, because I experienced a frequency similar to theirs, such intense joy in that telepathic communication. And I guess that's how all this started for me. So that's my awakening experience story. Maybe a forest on a ship, as I know it, is a reality now. Thanks. Yes, it is. I've seen images of the Yahyel ship, and in the center of the ship, they have like a biodome, like an artificial forest, like a tropical rainforest. So yeah, which I guess you'd want if you lived on a ship like 24 hours of the day, which the Yahyel do. They spend vast majority. They live on the ships, with short excursions to Earth and other planets. I had an experience as you just described 30 years ago. I felt as if I would explode if it continued. I have never forgotten, but have never experienced it again. How can you tap back into it? Yeah, good question. I think perhaps we're not meant to tap into those peak experiences because we wouldn't be able to integrate them with a human existence. They're here to show us and remind us like who we are and what our nature is, and enable us to bring that into the human experience in a grounded way. But if I was in that state, I couldn't interact with a regular human being. There would just be no point of there would be no common ground. It would be like, it's just so far out consciousness, such a different level of experience of reality. It wouldn't serve the human existence. No one would, someone who hadn't experienced it wouldn't be able to, there would be no common ground for communication. So I don't think we're supposed to live these peak experiences all the time. We're supposed to integrate them with our reality. We're supposed to create a reality for ourselves that is a reflection of that super high frequency, super expanded state grounded in physical reality. So I don't think we're actually supposed to like fully Like, because if we were to experience those states like 24 hours, we wouldn't be able to interact with regular humans. It wouldn't make any sense to them or us. We'd just have to like go into the mountains and just like find a cave and just like be in a constant state of bliss and universal consciousness or something. So I don't think we're supposed to live in those super accelerated states of consciousness. Certainly not now. Who knows, in 60 years? Perhaps, probably not even then. But we're moving towards that. It's all about getting to a state closer to that, integrated with our human experience. Dark night of the soul is the shit bubbling to the surface. It will stop and start up again. This could go on for years. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I see there's a lot of questions, guys, but we've been going for quite a long time, and it perhaps feels like a good place to stop because I think we've covered a lot of stuff. And yeah, so it's been a really cool live stream. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I've really enjoyed it tonight. I love doing this, and I couldn't do it without you guys. So thanks for interacting, and I will see you same time next week, 6 p.m. UK time, live on YouTube. Have a wonderful day, guys. Shivai, good day.